Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. I'm so glad you've joined me for the final part of our story, which is very exciting, because right now Errol has discovered that there is a lot of incriminating evidence in the dustbin that belongs to Stacey Turner, which suggests that Stacey Turner is behind the unfortunate goings-on in flat number 5 in the Prt4of4 residence. So we're about to find out what transpires from thenceforth. But before we do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and a thumbs up, and let's continue with our story. I woke up the very next morning with a throbbing headache, as you would expect, since I'd drunk far too much alcohol the previous night. I began to wonder if everything that had happened was, in fact, a figment of my imagination. But I knew it had been profoundly real. Furthermore, I had the photograph album belonging to Lara Knoxville in my house to prove it all. I needed to return it to her as soon as possible. I was in no doubt she would be pleased to get it back. "You look like death warmed up, my love," my wife said to me. She eagerly prepared breakfast for me. "You certainly were waylaid last night at the Prt4of4 residence. I didn't even wait up for you. What time did you get back? I never even heard you come in, but then again I do sleep like a log." "I think it was probably about 12:30. 1:45 even. I'm not sure exactly." "Well, go on then. Did you get any clues when interviewing the neighbours over the road?" "I do believe I know who's behind the hoax phone calls, if that's what you mean," I told her. "I believe it's Stacey Turner." "Stacey Turner? Are you being serious?" said my wife, looking stunned. "But she seems like such a lovely young lady. What would induce her to behave like this?" "That young lady has collected parcels from us both here at the house, and I always got the impression she was such an amenable, likeable young lady. I don't think she could be behind this, Errol." "Well, appearances can be very deceptive, love, I'm afraid to say. I found a photo album belonging to Lara Knoxville in Stacey Turner's bin, and that is incriminating evidence indeed. That is not all. She had stuffed Mrs. Thomas's missing black and white cat Casper into a plastic bag to suffocate and kill the animal. Now, what kind of a person does that?" "What on earth are you talking about, Errol? That can't be. You're not making sense. There's no way Stacey Turner would do such a vile, despicable thing." That was when I told my wife about the strange banging sounds of the dustbins I had heard when leaving the Prt4of4 residence, and the Bigfoot I had encountered that had spoken to me in my head. My wife looked completely confounded, as you would expect. "Love, you're not being... well... you're not making any sense. I'm not being funny, but you didn't have too much to drink last night, did you? I mean, a talking Bigfoot? No, that sounds too incredulous for words." "Love, I know it sounds crazy. If you told me the very same thing, I would likely not believe you. But I promise you it happened. Think about it for a moment. Is it really that outlandish for a Bigfoot to be so very human, a lot like us? Indeed, he communicated in a very similar way, although the exchange we engaged in was completely telepathic." "Well, I don't know what to say, love. Of course I believe you. You don't make things like this up. But you must forgive me for being rather surprised by all of this, especially regarding Stacey Turner and her, crazy behaviour. That young lady is seriously sick in the head, if what you're telling me is true." As my wife said this, she received a message on her cell phone and looked at me with wide eyes, Goodness gracious me! Talk of the devil! This is a message from Mrs. Thomas. She said that Casper came into the house last night at 12:30, purring like mad. She said he was desperately hungry. My God, if that Bigfoot had not rescued him, he could be dead by now. What are you going to do, Errol? That woman has got to be stopped.
I need to handle this situation very delicately, I told my wife. My first port of call is to visit Lara Knoxville this morning. I want to figure out exactly how Stacy Turner is getting into Lara's apartment in order to put rats in her knicker drawer and things like that. All this has got to be stopped, as you say. But I need to ensure that she doesn't get into that apartment again. Suffice to say, Lara Knoxville was pleased to invite me into her apartment. "Is this yours?" I asked her, handing her the photograph album.
Oh, my God! You found my photograph album! Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Spicer. Where did you find it? I was convinced it had been stolen, that I'd never see it again, and you can't get photographs like this back.
It's a long story, Lara, I'm afraid. Let's just say I believe I'm on the correct trail, but I need to spare you all the details right now. I will only put you in the picture once I've established that all the facts I have gleaned are in fact correct. I hope you don't mind desperately much, Lara, if I do a search of your apartment. I'm not going to go snooping through your private things, of course, but I am looking for something in particular to answer some of my enigmatic questions.
Be my guest, said Lara. What are you looking for exactly, Mr. Spicer?
Well, I want to make sure that there are no hidden cameras in your apartment, that kind of thing. I also want to understand how this intruder that has been pulling off all these awful stunts is succeeding in getting into your apartment.
You think there are hidden cameras in my apartment?
Asked Lara, looking absolutely appalled. It's a distinct possibility, I'm afraid, I told her.
Oh, goodness gracious, said Lara, looking mortified. No wonder I feel watched all the time, Mr. Spicer. I always feel as if I'm not alone. And even when I go out of the apartment and I take my dog for a walk late in the afternoon in the woodgrove, even there I feel like I'm being followed. But no one is ever there, and I feel like I'm going completely mad.
Well, I'm going to investigate all of this for you. But I don't want to tell you anything at this stage about the strange goings-on that have been occurring in your apartment, until, as I say, I know all the facts. The last thing I want to do is lay accusations at the wrong door, if you get my drift. It's very important to be absolutely certain that you're on the right track before you go to the police and stuff like that. I'm sure you appreciate that.
Do you mind if I leave the apartment, Mr. Spicer, while you do all this? There's stuff I need to do. I've got an appointment with the vet for my dog's annual checkup.
That will suit me fine. In fact, that would be a very good idea. It's better if you're not around when I conduct my search anyway.
Come, let's go, Chunky Chops.
I watched Lara put a harness on her small dog, and finally she left the apartment. Once Lara Knoxville was safely out of the way, I conducted an intense, thorough search of her entire apartment from top to bottom, leaving no stone unturned. I thoroughly investigated all her closets that faced Stacy Turner's side of the apartment, and sure enough, as I suspected, in the main bedroom, in one of the closets there were panels at the back of Lara's closet that sounded hollow to the touch. That was when I realized I could pull that panel right back. It rolled neatly on its hinges like a sliding door, and opened out into a large clothing closet in Stacy Turner's apartment. I had found her point of access. I was to find out later from much research that in the 1920s, Lara Knoxville's bedroom had been the main bedroom of the house, belonging to the ship's captain and his wife. The sliding door had been easy access for the lady of the house to get into the nursery, and by all accounts this secret door had never been bolted down when the property had been converted into 6 separate apartments. I couldn't help rather feeling that I was caught up in a mystical story, rather like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, written by C.S. Lewis, and that once I crept cautiously through the closet, I would be like Edmund, arriving in Narnia, a mystical world covered in snow. But that is not what happened. As I crept rather cautiously into the closet, clothes were swinging above my head, brushing against me obtrusively. I was awkwardly stumbling over boxes and boxes of shoes, making quite a commotion, so I needed to be as quiet as I possibly could. The cupboard smelt musty and rather unpleasant. I stopped in my tracks. I could hear the sound of a television set blaring. Someone was laughing at it. Someone was watching television. I couldn't help but wonder what on earth Stacey Turner was doing at the apartment when she should be at work. I discreetly pulled the panel opening back into place and hurriedly returned home. I needed to resolve this problem once and for all. I acquired some chipboard, sealing shut the door between both apartments, so that Stacey Turner could no longer get into Lara's apartment. I looked around for any secret cameras, and sure enough I found them, hidden in the ceilings in most rooms in the apartment, except, of course, the bathroom, which was a relief. They were very well hidden, but I was in no doubt that Stacey Turner had been spying on the Knoxvilles for a long time, and all the other unfortunate residents that had lived in apartment number 5. But why was she doing such an atrocious thing? I would need to go home to investigate things before I told Lara what was going on. But this was turning out to be quite some story. It was later in the afternoon that I was watching the street again through my binoculars, and I was struck with what a grim, unprepossessing day it actually was. The clouds were feathered with a shrouding of grey. The blue sky looked bleakly dull, almost as if it had been bleached. I'd seen Lizelle trotting down the footpath, riding her horse earlier on in the afternoon. I'd also observed Chris Harper leaving the neighbourhood on the back of his rather spectacular-looking Harley-Davidson, with a couple of his biker friends. I wanted to see if I could see any sign of Stacey Turner leaving her apartment. I had deduced she could not have gone to work that morning, where she was supposed to work for that Japanese car dealership. I had heard her laughing very clearly at a program on daytime television. I couldn't believe Stacey Turner was capable of doing such a malicious stunt to her neighbours, and I was trying to make sense of it all. All of a sudden I saw Lara Knoxville leaving the Patchouli residence with her little dog Chunky Chops. This was the afternoon walk that she usually took him on. He was wagging his tail, sniffing the ground curiously. I pinned the binoculars on Lara carefully to watch her leave her property. The woman was wearing mint-coloured leggings, sneakers and a warm sweater. She had a woolly hat over her blonde hair. She stopped abruptly in the street, looked to her left and right, and looked behind her, almost as if she thought someone was clandestinely following her. I watched her sashaying across the grass towards the footpath on the side of the Patchouli residence that led through the grove of trees. This was a favourite spot for the locals to walk their dogs, and to go horse-riding, of course. And that was when I saw the dark, shadowy silhouette of a slight figure in a hoodie, following Lara down the footpath. I grimaced, because I knew the hooded figure must be Stacey Turner. She was obviously stalking Lara Knoxville, had quite a fixation over her. Was there no end to this woman's duplicity? What on earth was wrong with her? I rose to my feet and put the binoculars very abruptly down on the kitchen table, and scurried out of the kitchen as fast as I could, almost bumping headfirst into my wife. "What on earth are you doing, Errol? You appear to be in a dreadful hurry. You nearly knocked me over." She looked me up and down with a withering glance, as if she thought I was incorrigible. She shook her head. "Never you mind, love. This is nothing that concerns you. That is something I need to do, I told her. If you must know, I've just observed Lara Knoxville taking her dog for a walk in the wood grove like she does every afternoon. But this time it's different. Or maybe it's not. Maybe this happens every afternoon. But Stacy Turner is following her discreetly in a hoodie. Lara Knoxville does not know she's been stalked by the woman. I have no idea what Stacy Turner's up to, but I need to follow them. My wife looked visibly shaken. Stacy Turner is following Lara Knoxville in the woods. Well, I never. That woman is completely loopy. What the hell is wrong with her? But if you're going after them, put a jacket on or something, love. It's freezing out there. You'll catch your death of cold. We're not getting any younger, Errol, and at our age we need to guard against getting pneumonia. I reluctantly put my jacket on, knowing my wife was right. It was a dark, gloomy day. The smouldering clouds seemed determined to remain as unremarkably grey all day long. So when I left the house, big gasps of ice-cold air gnawed at my cheeks. It was decidedly chilly. I stepped up my pace and proceeded to run down the footpath as quickly as I could, ever grateful that I was wearing reasonably good walking shoes on my feet. My heart boomed in my chest like a heavy drum. I ran through the trees as quickly as I could. Most were stripped naked of their leaves, so some of their boughs appeared rather menacing, but other trees were doggedly determined to hold on to their yellow leaves for as long as possible, before they finally relinquished themselves of them. The footpath was heavily scattered with autumn leaves. It was noisy walking through them, but I tried to be as quiet as I possibly could, as my boots battered the leaves beneath leather soles that could easily give me away if I wasn't mindful of my steps. Further down the footpath I heard the excited yaps of a little dog, which I knew was Chubby Chops. I wondered where Stacy Turner had got to. Then I saw her. She was running discreetly behind one tree to the next, cautiously following Lara Knoxville, watching her every move and step. She was still wearing her black hoodie, that clearly concealed her face. At a glance you might even believe she was a boy. I couldn't see Lara properly. Her back was turned away from me as she proceeded down the path, but very often she would stop and nervously look behind her, as if she was sure she was being trailed. She would shake her head and proceed on her way, down the generous open paths through the trees, with her little dog running ahead of her, his keen nose smelling everything in his midst. What happened next I was not anticipating. We had been walking through the trees for some time. I'm not sure how much time had passed, but it could have been a good 15 minutes or so. Stacy drew closer and closer towards Lara, and then, in my horror, she picked up a formidable-looking stone and threw it directly at her. It missed her by mere inches, but this time Stacy Turner had gone too far. I knew throwing stones was a dangerous thing to do. Lara could get seriously hurt. This was not funny. I needed to put a stop to this at once. There was something warped with Stacy Turner's character. I wondered privately if she was a psychopath that had never been diagnosed of her condition, that she had somehow managed to hide successfully from society, fooling us all into believing she was a regular young lady. Lara looked bemused. She stared down at her sneakers and the stone that had narrowly missed hitting her. It had landed on the ground with a mighty forceful thump, and this was one big stone. Certainly if it had hit her, it could potentially have killed her. She looked startled, as you would expect. She called out into the trees, and there was anger in her voice. "Is anybody out there? I know you're there. Don't you dare keep hiding from me. Someone tried to throw this stone at me. And whoever you are, I know you're there. You've been watching me. You've been following me. You've been stalking me. I may not see you, but you know what? You're a coward. Why don't you show yourself to me?" Impressively, Lara stood her ground, defiantly staring through the trees to look for any signs of obvious movement. But I'm afraid there was so much sprawling ground cover, growing wildly between the trees in curtains of thick foliage, that it would have been impossible for Lara to see anyone. And by all accounts, Stacy was very well hidden from sight. And that was when I saw Stacy pick up yet another stone. You've got to be kidding! She intended to throw it at Lara. I ran towards her, but it was too late. The stone was flying towards Lara, and there was not a damn thing I could do to stop it. In a trice, something completely miraculous happened that I never ever saw coming. Something that I still think about today. A tall, lofty thing that I'd falsely believed was a tree suddenly sprang into life. Lara was efficiently thrown to one side by a powerful, forceful, hairy arm, so that the stone missed her by a hair's breadth. And that was when I saw the Bigfoot, the same creature I'd seen the night before, rummaging around the bins, the one that had saved the cat from a certain death. Lara was on the ground, looking up at the Bigfoot in astonishment. The Bigfoot had caught the stone in his powerful hands, and Lara realized in that moment that this huge, formidable creature had saved her life, for she had been rescued from being hit by this flying object. Lara was confounded to see the Bigfoot. It was titanic in size. Her eyes widened, her jaws dropped open as she stared up into the creature's eyes, who was helping her get back on her feet by extending his hand. My attention was diverted to loud screams that I heard coming from Stacy Turner. "Help! Help! Help me! There's a Bigfoot! There's a Bigfoot!" I could hear boots thundering through the thicket, branches breaking and snapping, someone frantically running away. Of course it was Stacy Turner. Stacy had seen the Bigfoot and had been very rattled. But let's not kid. The creature was very intimidating. It would have scared anyone half to death. I heard another ear-piercing shriek from Stacy Turner. She yelped out in pain. She had tripped over a gnarled tree root that was jutting through the soil and fallen over it, spraining her ankle. She was trying to get to her feet, looking frantically behind her, when I arrived on the scene to offer her my help. My sympathy towards the spitefully vindictive woman was draining away. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Stacy?" I snapped. "I know what you've been getting up to. You haven't fooled anyone. You've been harassing all the people that were living in apartment number 5. You're the one that has been sneakily calling the emergency services to the apartment, putting rats in drawers, doing all these atrociously mean and wicked things. And now you were throwing stones at Lara Knoxville. Why would you do such a dreadful thing? Do you realize you could have killed the poor girl? What the hell were you thinking? Are you not right in the head or something? Help me! Help me! Help me get up! My ankle's killing me. I've sprained it so badly. We need to get the hell out of here. Did you not see it? There's a Bigfoot back there in the trees. He's humongous. The most terrifying creature I've ever seen in my life. We need to get out of here fast, I'm telling you. It might hurt us. It might harm us. It might even kill us." Her body trembled as I held out my hand to help her rise to the feet. She was wincing in pain. "I don't think I've broken anything, but it hurts like hell. I don't think I'm going to walk on it. You're going to have to help me out of here. You need to move fast. I'm telling you, there's a Bigfoot in the trees over there." "Don't you worry about the Bigfoot. I've seen him before. He's benevolent. He wouldn't harm a fly." "But are you sure? How do you know this? He's very, very big." "I'm sure. I've met him before. He's a very kind creature. He wouldn't harm a fly. I know he looks intimidating, but I happen to know this." Stacy took my hand gratefully. Her hoodie fell back to expose her face. But it wasn't Stacy that I was looking at. This young lady was no more than a teenager, with shoulder-length brown hair and dark, soulless eyes. "Who the hell are you?" Where is Stacy? I asked her. The teenager, whom I guess was about 16 years old, rolled her eyes in the back of her head. She certainly had attitude, and was rather sarcastic.
Duh! Do I look like Stacy, old man? Thank God I don't. My sister's ugly. She threw me a smile. My name is Toya Turner. I'm Stacy's sister. I live with her in her apartment.
What on earth do you mean by throwing stones at Lara Knoxville? You could have seriously injured her.
She deserved it. She deserved it, said Toya again. She blocked the panel in the closet. I can't get into her apartment anymore, and I'm pissed about it.
You've no right to trespass onto private property. And for your information, I was the one that blocked the hidden doorway in the closet. Just for the very reason that you can't get in there again.
So it was you, said Toya, looking defiant. You blocked the doorway in the closet. How could you do that? How could you do that?
She repeated, looking defiant.
You did it.
She made a furious face at me. Yes, I did it. You're a very evasive young lady. Stacy has never mentioned you to me before. I didn't even know she had a sister, and I've never seen you around. Why has she not mentioned you to me? The girl contorted her face again, and then let out a cackle of laughter that sounded rather like a witch.
Duh! I told you, she said, looking at me,
as if she thought I was a gormless idiot.
My sister doesn't even know I live with her. Are you deaf or dumb or something?
The young lady defiantly had tons of attitude. Shouldn't you be living with your parents? Why are you living with your sister?
I don't want to live with my parents. I hate them. I hate going to school. I've already been expelled from 3 schools, you know. The teachers describe me as a disruptive pupil. Can you believe that? There's so many rules at my home. My mother is so bossy. She's always making me do things around the house, housework and stuff like that. They were always grounding me, stopping me having fun with my friends. I ran away from home 2 years ago and it serves them right. I live in my sister's apartment now. I do my own thing when she's out, but I hide in the closet when she gets home. It's quite spacious in there, actually. Stacy doesn't even know I live with her. She's so incredibly dopey. She doesn't notice a thing, said the young teenager with a cocky laugh. When she's out all day, I have the entire flat to myself. It's absolutely amazing. I watch TV, I do whatever I like. And at night, when she's fast asleep, I sometimes take a walk around the neighbourhood. Nobody ever sees me. And if they do, they just think I'm a boy. I hide behind my hoodie. I wear men's clothes. They don't give me a second glance. I fooled so many people. The police gave up looking for me a long time ago. As far as they're concerned, I'm just a runaway. I'm smarter than everybody is. That's why I get away with it.
How can your sister not know you are living with her? I asked. That makes no sense at all.
I told you. I'm a lot cleverer than she is. My sister's an absolute flake. Stacy's head is in the clouds all the time. She's a big daydreamer. She doesn't notice anything. She doesn't observe that I've been eating her food for over 2 whole years. Most people would notice such a thing, wouldn't they? But not Stacy. Never Stacy. Sometimes she's wandered around her own apartment with me hiding out in the next room. She doesn't even notice I'm there. She gave my parents a key to her apartment, and I just took it. The rest is history.
So you're the one that put hidden cameras in the Knoxville property. And for 2 whole years, since you've been hiding out in your sister's apartment, you've been causing the residents of apartment number 5 no end of grief with your shenanigans. Why would you do such mean things to all of them?
Isn't it obvious? I was bored, and it was fun. You should have seen their expressions when they couldn't make out what was going on in their apartment. It was a bore watching them.
The cameras, where did you get those from?
My sister bought them a while back. She's so flaky she never put them up. I fitted them in the Knoxville flat. There were instructions in a container. It wasn't difficult to do. I'm quite nifty with my hands, you see. It's all been fun, until of course you came along to spoil everything and ruin it all.
You think putting little cats into plastic bags is fun, do you? I asked the young woman, feeling myself wrestling with a deep-seated furious anger that was burning inside me. If I'd ever stared evil in the eye, I did so with this young teenage girl, who thought she was so much cleverer than anybody else. Anyone that is cruel towards animals is not worthy of breathing the same oxygen as far as I'm concerned. It would seem sometimes, even in a mother's nest, there can always be a bad egg. And this was certainly the case with Toya Turner.
How do you know about the cats?
She asked me, looking stupefied. Let's just say not everybody is as stupid as you think. And yes, I do know about them. I notice things. And if the residents in this neighbourhood knew what you'd been doing, Toya, to their pets, they'd run you out of town in a heartbeat. Why did you do it?
Because it was fun. I'd get the cats to come to me with a little bit of food in my hand, and then I would grab them and put them in a plastic bag, knot it up, see them squirm. It was hilarious to see them wiggling around in the bag, and then I would trash it in the dumpster.
What is wrong with you, young lady? Do you have no respect for animals? You could have killed them. It was very fortunate that the Bigfoot rescued all of them. Toya looked at me as if she thought I was a complete idiot.
Killing them was the idea, old man. Don't you know anything? Or are you as dim as my sister is? If you must know, I hate cats. They all deserve to die.
Moments later, Lara came bounding down the trail, with her dog beside her. She looked up in surprise to see me in the woodgrove talking to a young teenager that she'd likely never ever seen before.
Hello, Mr. Spicer. What on earth are you doing here? And who is this you've got with you? You are not going to believe what happened to me. Someone followed me into the woodgrove, and they were throwing stones at me. And all of a sudden, this Bigfoot just materialized. I mean, I'm talking about a real Bigfoot. He came out of nowhere, and he stopped a stone from hitting me. It could have really harmed me, Mr. Spicer. This Bigfoot helped me to my feet. He was so huge. He was terrifying to look at, but he was so nice. And he helped me get to my feet. And he even stroked my dog. And my dog liked him. Oh, Mr. Spicer, it was incredible. He told me to be very careful, that someone was trying to hurt me.
I know all about it. You were being stalked, Lara, by this young lady here. She was the one that was throwing stones at you. Lara looked confounded.
Who are you? I've never seen you before. Why would you do such a thing?
The girl grinned. So what? You deserved it, that's why.
I don't even know who you are,
Lara asked, looking confused.
Why are you so hateful towards me? What did I ever do to you?
No, you don't know her. This young lady is 16-year-old Toya Turner. She's your next-door neighbour's sister. She ran away from home over 2 years ago. She's been hiding out in her sister's apartment for the last 2 years. Has been staying in a closet when her sister's at home. I'm afraid Stacy does not know she's living there. She found a secret door from her closet into yours to access your apartment. She's the one that has been pulling all those nasty stunts on you, putting rats in your drawers, removing stuff from your apartment. This is the little madam that has been haunting you.
It was you, asked Toya in disgust. It was you! How could you? Do you have any idea how frightened I've been? We should call the police, Mr. Spicer. She needs to be locked away for good. I don't care if she's a minor. What's wrong with you?
A wicked grin appeared on Toya's face.
What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with me. It's called having fun, in case you don't know what that's about. It was good to scare you half to death, and it worked. You were in such a state. Your husband thought you were losing your mind. It was hilariously funny.
At that uncalled-for remark, Lara slapped the young lady across the face so hard that the teenager was almost thrown off balance, and I have to admit she deserved it. 3 months later, there was a ringing at the front door, and I went to get it. I could see Lara Knoxville standing in the doorway with a big smile on her face. It was always good to see her. I welcomed her in. "Come in, Lara. How are you, my dear?" "I'm very well, Mr. Spicer. It's good to see you." "Well, I believe I've got something for you. Let me go and get it for you. Why don't you come with me into the kitchen? And how about I make you a nice cup of tea? Or coffee, if you prefer."
"I'll have coffee, Mr. Spicer. That would be so good."
"I think I've got some more essential oils for you. How is your essential oil course going, by the way? My wife told me all about it."
"It's so great," said Lara. "I'm loving every minute of it, Mr. Spicer."
I looked up at Lara and was struck by how completely different she looked these days, compared to the frightened young woman she had been over 3 months ago. She had become like a new person when it was discovered that Stacy Turner's 16-year-old sister had been playing these insidious pranks on her. Stacy had naturally been mortified to discover her sister Toya had been living in her apartment for over 2 years, and admitted she hadn't noticed a single thing.
"I'm a bit ditzy, Mr. Spicer. If I saw food had been eaten, I probably assumed it was me. There was a time I noticed something felt off, which was why I bought those cameras in the first place, which I never got to put up. I thought I was just being silly, and it was all in my imagination."
The police were naturally very pleased to have found the troubled runaway. Her parents were thrilled to be reunited with Toya again. But she was receiving psychiatric help and evaluations. She was currently residing in a mental health care facility, diagnosed with all kinds of problems. I was forever grateful that our neighbourhood was now calm and serene, boringly so, you could say. At least no cats were being bagged in plastic bags and thrown into the dumpster, and no fire brigades and ambulances were being called onto our street. I probably would have to take up bird watching after all, as nothing untoward was going on in the neighbourhood. We didn't even have any manic drivers, since we'd managed to get a couple of speed bumps erected in our road. Everybody was looking on me as some kind of a hero for resolving the enigmatic mysteries that had persisted for so long, most especially Lara Knoxville. I was just an ordinary civilian that would have done what anybody else would have done in my circumstances. The only claim to fame I had is that I was a bit of a snoop, which had of course benefited the community greatly. I have not seen the Bigfoot again. I wish I had, but Lara has seen him a couple of times, when her dog runs off in the woods to find him. The Bigfoot pats her dog and nods at Lara.
"I like knowing he's out there, Mr. Spicer," she told me once. "I know he would help if any of us took a nasty tumble in the grove."
I believe she's right. I consider him to be a caretaker of the forest. So there you are. That's my story.
I loved every minute of that story. I don't know about you, but wow, wasn't that wonderful? And so many twists and turns to this story. A Bigfoot that is looking out for the animals in the neighbourhood, looking out for the people, being a caretaker of the woodgrove, but an awful teenager who's been hiding out in her sister's apartment and her sister doesn't know it and is terrorising the community. What an incredible story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.